Good afternoon from the Photography Show. I'm here with David Stanbury for David and Jane Stanbury, amazing wedding and portrait photographers. Dave's been a customer of ours for quite a long time, one of our early adopters. But the reason Dave is so successful is because he still continues to do incredibly well through print, and particularly through albums. Now, I know many of you who've never actually printed really want to understand the secret behind printing and creating albums. So Dave's created this talk for you, 5 easy steps to make great album sales. Is that right, Dave?
5 easy steps to make great album sales.
So welcome, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to leave you guys to listen to David. And if you've got any questions, feel free to post on this post once it comes out, and we'll all endeavour to answer. Okay, Dave, take it away.
Problem.
Thank you.
Hope you can all hear and understand me. So let's make a start. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is David Stanbury. Obviously, Jane is my wife and business partner. I've been in the photography industry far too long. About 30 years in business from our studio based in the northwest of England. I'm also an international photography judge, mentor. We do training and workshops as well for photographers, primarily in the wedding section, but we are wedding and portrait photographers as well. So anything to do with the wedding photography industry, the business side of it, editing, shooting weddings, and then we can help you with that in our workshops and our mentoring. I'm also a photography consultant for photography brands, for Fuji, Hasselblad, and Photography Studio as well. So we've done quite a little bit of consultations regarding the industry. Anyway, that's enough of the boring bit. Let's get straight into this. So, as Jeremy has said, 5 easy steps to great album sales, and these are very, very easy steps that any photographer can do that will help improve the album sales, but also improve the album and the photography as well. So, let's start at the beginning. Tip 1. This is very, very simple to some people, but some people, actually, photographers, don't quite get this. Show what you sell and sell what you show. A lot of photographers say, listen, I struggle a little bit to sell wedding albums. And then when I ask them, well, how are you going about selling wedding albums? They'll say, well, I'm showing them a picture, or I'm not even mentioning the wedding album. And I always say, well, how is a client going to know that you do wedding albums? How will that client know just how important that wedding album is? So show what you sell and sell what you show. So this is a bit of a screenshot from our studio. So you walk into our studio. On the left-hand side of our studio, you've got all our different album ranges, different album sizes. We presume that every one of our wedding clients will be having a wedding album. Why wouldn't they? So that's our approach, that's our mentality as we're actually talking to our clients. Why would you not think about having a wedding album? And then when you start to actually talk to the clients about the wedding albums, they start to realise, actually, I do need a wedding album. A little bit of a tip within a tip here is I always tell our bride and grooms, if they're thinking about what sort of album to go for, I always say, before you come in for the wedding consultation, say 2 to 3 weeks before the wedding, when you're thinking about what wedding photographs to have taken, why not run through your parents' wedding album? That way then you can get some ideas for photographs that you're taking on the wedding day. But in reality, what I'm doing is I'm getting the parents to sell wedding albums to the bride and groom. And then they start the conversations. Oh, this is Auntie Flora, this is Uncle John. The conversations over the wedding album start to begin, and that's when the wedding album coin finally drops. So, the exceptionally titled tip number 2. Tip number 2: shoot for the wedding album. It does make album design a lot easier when you're actually physically taking the photographs to work in a row. So, in other words, here we've got the bride. We've done photographs half length back, half length front, obviously trying to set that page. We're suddenly going from individual photographs to scenes. So every page is a scene. So you could have a bridal makeup scene, you can have a bride having a dress put on scene, or a ceremony scene. So instead of thinking about individual pictures with a wedding album, start thinking more about scenes. Here's another scene as well. This is the groom getting ready scene. So the groom scene. So as we can see here, we've got a photograph of the groom, and then we have detail shots. Again, this is something, memories for the days. What sort of flower did I have on my wedding day? What was the cufflinks like? Again, this is now all captured on film, but it's put into a wedding album. But because we've shot for the wedding album, we know we need to do a landscape photograph and some portrait photos to help make that page. Guess what's next? Tip number 3. I've also added some photographs as well. I didn't want to do a slideshow so everybody could see a long drawn out, hey, look at my photograph. So every one of these particular different images is from what we've shot on wedding days. So tip number 3, I've changed this saying a little bit. If it's easy to, you've heard the saying, if it's easy to sell, it's easy to buy. Well, I've changed that a little bit. If it's easy to design, then it's easy to sell. If it's easy to sell, then it's easy to buy. So what do I mean by that? Well, we've been shooting for the album, so how about a little bit of an automated album design? Now, actually, I'm a Fondy ambassador, so obviously I'm going to talk about Fondy software, which has helped us to design our albums in record time. I mean, we can turn albums around literally in minutes, or if you want to do something a little bit more of an exaggerate, a bit more of a fancy design, then obviously it takes a little bit longer. But everything is done in Fondy. You can do an auto design, which instantly just designs the pages with the photos that you want to go on it, or you can go into a little bit more detail. You can even choose which sort of template you want to. So it is really simple and it is really easy. So the fear of actually designing wedding albums, it doesn't exist anymore. Wedding albums is as easy as pressing the button on the camera. Another good thing about design software, and certainly on the Fondy design software, is a lot of photographers think, well, I photographed the wedding, I photographed the wedding album, that's me finished. Well, we now have the chance to sell all that. With the Fondy designer, we can actually show the clients and their living room what the wedding photographs are going to look like on their own walls within their own homes of their wedding day. So this is also an added bonus, and it's also going to be helping you to get that extra valuable income that that's really going to keep businesses going over these dark days. Guess what's coming next? Tip number 4. Make it unique. Why should every wedding album be exactly the same? In the old days when we started, every album was exactly the same. It was a white album with a picture of a church on it with a tissue paper. Make your wedding album unique. Make it personalised to the client. This particular album here, which is actually on the Graphic Studio stand, is what we did for a Chinese couple when they got married. And during the Chinese tea ceremony, the bride actually wore a red wedding dress. So we actually encapsulated the details of the actual wedding dress design onto the young book. So it's a bit of a raised varnish to give it that touch feel sort of feeling. Inside the wedding album, we actually used the groom's shirt. Now the groom's shirt, as you know probably from the previous videos that we've seen, the groom's shirt was his father's shirt that he wore on his wedding day. So we wanted to get that personal attachment into it. So this album is a one-off album. And with Graphic Studio, you can do that. You literally can make one-off wedding album, no problem whatsoever, as easy as ABC. So here we've just incorporated the colours, the colour scheme, the gold, which has obviously got the bride and groom's name on it, and the groom's shirt as well. So make it unique. Make these albums a one-off. That way then everybody wants to, say, wow, look at that album, it's so different, it's not like anything I've seen before. Again, this is going to get you noticed. Another option here that we can do, this is the engraved wood. This is something where we engraved the wedding venue onto the leather box of the wedding album. Another thing I always tell to people when they're designing wedding albums as well, and this is really, really important, don't forget to put who photographed the wedding album somewhere in that wedding album. Don't forget, you photographed that wedding album, but the people who are going to be showing this wedding album to, they have no idea who's photographed the wedding album. So don't forget, always include your branding, your name within the wedding album. It's the best sales card you're ever going to have. Guess what's next, guys? You got it. Tip 5. You're going to love this one. Be social. Obviously, social media now is a really, really big thing within the industry. So you want to be using TalkBook and FaceTime and all these sort of things that you need to be showing your wedding albums on. So be social. If you have a little bit of a look through the Graphic Studio video section, you'll see a previous video that I showed, which was actually the reveal of the Chinese wedding album, where we actually got the bride and groom to live open the wedding album, and their expressions was priceless. If you can get video content like that to show your future bride and grooms, albums will sell themselves. It's just the way to do it. It really is good. So get those behind the scenes shots, get to showing people why wedding albums are important to everybody. So I always like to use hashtags to help sell my wedding albums. And we did come up with a couple of hashtags at a couple of photo shows a couple of years ago. It didn't seem to have the same effect. So perhaps you may want to use perhaps Love an Album, but for some reason it didn't really work, this Love an Album. I can't understand why. It seemed to fall a bit flat. It seemed to get a few complaints. I don't know why. I like wedding albums. So if you love an album, then obviously use this hashtag. If you don't want to use this hashtag, then you can move on to something else. So, guess what? I'm from the north, and you know us northerners like to give things away for nothing. You know, we really do like to give you the extra. So this is tip 6, or as I like to call it, the freebie tip. So, this is a couple of things I always hear. Albums are old-fashioned. Albums are too much hassle. The album gets put in the attic after a few months. I hear this not from bride and grooms, I hear this from photographers. It's almost like photographers are wanting to stop people having wedding albums. Albums are old-fashioned, they're too much hassle. They are not. Try and think of it as another way. Here's another way to think about a wedding album. A wedding album is the bridge between the generations. Now, I love this saying, print is the bridge between the generations, because it means that you can show your grandchildren your photographs as time goes on. But here's a different way of looking at it. It's a different way of looking at the print between the generations. Do you remember the Chinese shirt? Do you remember the Chinese wedding album? Well, look what we did the other week. This is the little boy. So yes, because they've got to know us through the album design and through the wedding photography that we've done, we're now doing the family portraits. And this means that we are going to be their photographers for life. So when I turn around and I say, you know, a wedding album is for life, it is for future generations, as photographers, we are going to be along with this family for the future ride together. And another thing I always look at it as well is when I'm no longer here, my wedding albums will still be around. People will be still looking at and enjoying our photography, or I hope they will be looking and enjoying our photography. So I always ask photographers, my legacy is going to be my wedding albums. What is your legacy going to be? What will be left when you are no longer doing photography? Well, for me, there's going to be a lot of wedding albums out there that people are going to love and people are going to carry on enjoying. So my name's David Stanbury. Thank you very much for that. And I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, David.